when there is a tension between these two countries, India and China, across the border, there is a tension today when people are talking about banning Chinese product. How much we are realistic in doing this? Is India going to be a self-reliant country? Are we really going to make voice for the local products? Are we really going to make India a self-sufficient country? We are going to understand all these things in today's video. I'm Pramankur. I'm basically an international motivator and an international speaker. Time when there is a tension between these two countries, India and China, we know that there is a cross-border tension going on right now, and there is a huge patriotic feeling among all Indians, and people are talking about becoming self-reliant and self-dependent. And the time when our Honorable Prime Minister has recently banned 59 apps from China. So how much we are really taking a logical step by banning this Chinese product? Is it the solution which we are really going to get? Or just by saying no to China, we become self-reliant? So before we talk about all these things, we need to understand that what we understand by becoming self-sufficient. In a country where we talk about balancing the trade, India has never been in such comfortable zone, because India has always maintained a trade deficit. Because if you see, the imports are always on a higher scale in comparison to the exports. Because if you see, we have a high dependency on our neighboring country China, whether it is the heavy machinery, whether it is the telecom, whether it is the raw materials for the pharmaceuticals. All these products are basically being taken from our neighboring country China. Even in the last financial year in 2020, if you see, the net worth of total import was $65.01 billion. And however, if you compare the import, it was a negligible $16.01 billion, which is a huge difference, almost a $48 billion gap. So if this is a kind of trade deficit, so if definitely we are basically going to cut down the kind of import which we are doing right now, so we basically have to find out immediate alternative, and which country we have to really understand from where we are going to replace that thing. So whether it is Europe, whether it is US, or whether it is Korea or Australia. But that is not possible right now. But at the same time, keeping in mind the present scenario, we cannot keep on consuming huge amount of products or the imports from China. So let us understand that what exactly we should do so that we can become self-reliant, or whether it is really possible to become self-reliant or not. First of all, we need to understand, when we talk about any country's economy, a country's economy is always strengthened by its business and its production. But if you see the nature of Indian business has never been a manufacturing or a production-based country. India has always been rich in service-based industry, and that is the reason why we see, since so many years after independence, we do not have so many good industries or so many big production houses. And that is why whenever we talk about manufacturing, we can find only few organizations who are doing well. Still we are dependent on our neighbor, and the main reason is that India has never promoted in past about the research and development, which is strongly required. We always have been believing that how we can hire the cheap technology from others, and we can simply package and assemble things and we can make profit out of it. But the time has come when India has to become self-reliant. I really appreciate the great move by our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, who has basically raised the slogan of become vocal for local. Yes, we can become vocal for local, but for that we have to understand that there are several factors which we need to consider, and that is, I think, very important than where we have a proper roadmap which the government has selectively started working on. And they have said that there are 5 elements which are going to be integral for this self-reliance move. If you talk about self-reliant, then we have to first of all understand that what exactly are the important ingredients to make a country self-dependent. So the 5 pillars on this roadmap are economy, which is going to be very important role for any country's backbone. But right now, keeping in mind the ongoing pandemic and the recent crisis and the recent unemployment rate, we have to understand that we basically have to look for a way where we can get a quantum leap. Just by getting incremental growth, we are not going to get a lot of difference. And the second thing is, we have to strengthen our infrastructure. let it be the road, let it be the land system, let it be the kind of factories. We have to have the international world-class infrastructure which is required for our businesses to grow. And the third thing is the system. We have to ensure that all our businesses are technology driven. They are taking help of information technology. Unless and until we are really having a proper technology driven business, we cannot compete with the international market. And the fourth thing, which is very important, is the demography. That is the country's biggest youth population, which is one of the strongest part of India. Being one of the largest democracy, we have the most potential population who are at the younger age, which we can really encash by giving them rich training and skill training, which is very important, because unless and until we upskill our human resource, we cannot meet up this requirement. And the fifth element is basically the financial reforms, which are very important, which is going to definitely help. But for that, we need to have a good supply chain system, and the supply chain system is going to ensure that we basically can meet up the demand. If you talk about a country like India, where the demand has never been less, rather we should say demand has been surplus. But if you talk about the domestic production units or the domestic manufacturing, it was weak, and that is the reason it has failed to cater to the requirement of the domestic demand. And that is why every time we have seen that foreign brands have entered into India and they have simply captured the market. And that is why after the WTO policy, it is not possible for any country to say no to any other country for using their market, because we are basically open. So it is logically not possible to ban any country in today's time. So either we have to switch to some other market, but if China is doing its business, we are still open. But it is the choice of our countrymen or the people of this country who have to decide that how to resist ourselves from using Chinese product. So what exactly is the solution? Should we use the import rates or the import tariffs to increase, or is it going to give the solution? Not really. By raising the import cost, it is not the only solution. We have to understand that unless and until our people are getting the parallel standard, they are not getting the kind of product or the requirement they are having. Unless we satisfy them, it is not possible to replace the Chinese product. The difference between Indian product and Chinese product, if you see, Chinese products are easily available at different price category. They have A category, which are basically premium products, B category, which are medium price product, and the C category, which are cheap price products. So since they have manufacturing on a large scale, they can easily meet up that requirement. And that is why when the average middle class find their products which are reachable and pocket friendly, they find it much easier to go for the Chinese replacement. And that is probably the reason India, being one of the largest market for mobile phone and telecommunication, still we find India does not have a reliable brand of its own. Still we are dependent on the foreign nation, and that is why you can see the mobile industry or the mobile market is hugely flourished by the Chinese brand today. So we basically have to go definitely step by step, but at the same time we have to understand, in order to give the ease for the business, as I already said, that we need to have a proper infrastructure, a proper economic reform, and we need to have less complicated legal system for the Indian business so that they can really survive and they can really compete with the international brand. Because in today's time, what is really required is we need to give them a proper boost so that they can come up to meet the challenge of the international standard, and at the same time they get the financial support, which is very important. Presently, if you see that there are a lot of companies who are trying to market their products, but they don't have proper economic support, and the main reason is that we do not have enough subsidy from the government side. So are we doing enough? Are we creating enough economic reforms for them? If we are doing so, then definitely we'll help these companies to grow. Recently, Government of India has made a particular policy that till 200 crores the government is going to only entertain Indian business to make the tender, which is definitely a good step. It will help the Indian business to grow, and such reforms are really required. And once we have such systems in place, I'm sure Indian business will become more stronger and gradually the economy will rise up. So such steps are really required in this time to become self-reliant. And my friends, before we really talk about becoming self-reliant, we need to understand that a country does not become self-reliant overnight. We have to become self-reliant not only by banning the Chinese product, not only by banning this several Chinese applications like TikTok, by different other applications which we have been very friendly in using. So we must be using different kind of browsers like UC browser. We must be using different kind of platforms which we are very friendly, whether we are talking about the several friendly apps which we find it very easy to use, entertaining apps. But behind all these things, the biggest thing is our mentality, because today if you talk about the average people, they are more familiar in using cheap and easy product. But before that, we have to also understand the people always take pride in using the imported products. So what is exactly the fascination of using imported products? They always relate their self-pride in using imported products. Not only about Chinese product, about any foreign products, people have been always fascinated to use. And that is the reason why we always get so much emotional when we talk about a foreign brand. But the time has come when we have to raise our voice for the local brands as well. We have to really bring those pride when we have the great golden brands in India, where we have been really proud of them, and bring those great brands once again so that we can say with confidence that we can become self-reliant. And unless and until we change our mindset, we really cannot become self-sufficient and a self-reliant country. So remember, my friends, it is time that we pass on this message to our next generation, that if you have to build your country, first of all, we have to be ourselves the change, and we have to really come up with that global mindset so that we can strengthen ourselves. Because the time is not there when we will only go by a typical India-made Swadeshi culture. Because in the Britishers' time, when we were really boycotting all the English products or the British products, this is not the same time no more. We cannot just say boycott China and simply say no to Chinese things. But we have to parallelly grow our own industry. We have to have the belief in our own industry, and we should recognize the India-made product so that we can not only become a made in India, but also a successful make in India product, because we have to welcome the foreign direct investment. Parallelly, we also have to give scope to our Indian business so that they can compete hand in hand and they can give a good challenge to the international market. So my friends, we really can use this opportunity for our country and making ourselves self-reliant. But we should not forget that this opportunity is like a blessing in disguise. Maybe we talk about this pandemic, but this pandemic has definitely brought this as an opportunity, because whenever we have seen there is a major natural calamity or there is a major world setback, it has always brought some new change. Maybe this is a big opportunity for a country like India. We should try to encash this opportunity, and we all become self-reliant and a self-dependent country, and we can really become one of the strongest nations. So, Jai Hind. Let's hope that we really take a pledge to make ourselves self-reliant and self-dependent.